So as far as indie games go, Hello Loose got kind of big, and then all of his players left. 2/3 just dropped out and stopped playing. And in this video, I would like to explain some of the reasons, some of the core main reasons as to why that happened, and give a couple ideas of what can be done to fix it. So I started playing Hell Let Loose in late summer of 2019. Back then, there was only around like 1,200, 1,500 people playing the game, and it was being developed by Black Matter and published by Team 17. Throughout the years, the Black Matter would release updates to the game, and thousands of people would get it, thousands of people would start playing, and there would be a huge spike in player base, and it would go up a few thousand and then it would drop. And it would usually settle back at like the average like daily player, a few thousand higher, like a thousand or two, or maybe a little bit more than it was pre-spike. And from 2019 until late 2022, it kept doing that like roller coaster, spiking up during big updates, like when they released new maps, new factions, new weapons, new loadouts, new tanks, etc. Shit like that, right? And it would do this thing where it would go up, and then it would settle a little higher, then up, back down, settle a little higher, then it would just keep doing that for years. And it got to the point about a year ago, in late 2022, before the British update, into early 2023, before the British came out, that there was about 12,000 concurrent players per day. And that was not during a spike. That's the highest it had ever been. About 10 times as many players as had been playing when I started playing the game. And at the end of last year, some of you might not know this, but the publisher Team 17 bought Hell Let Loose, bought the IP for Hell Let Loose from Black Matter for 46 million euros, I think it was, which is an incredible deal. I mean, I wouldn't have paid that much for the game. I don't have that money, obviously, so I couldn't, but still. Great deal for Black Matter. They made off with a bunch of money. Team 17 now has to sell the game. So what they do is they go ahead and they release the British. And the British suck. And a bunch of people leave. And the movement mechanics suck and a bunch of people leave. And the game dropped to where it is now, usually hovering between 3,000 and 4,000 concurrent players a day, which is a huge drop. That's about 2/3 of the community, maybe more. And I've had to explain why over and over and over to people. And at this point, this is more like an all-around me just getting out there. Also, an open letter to Team 17 is like, hey, like, this is what happened, and I have an idea of how to fix it. But it's mostly just me putting out there my view of what happened to the game and why the player base left. Because Hell Let Loose has been my favorite game of all time. And I'm a bit heartbroken as to seeing it fall so far and seeing all the servers fade. I'm part of a clan, the Devil's Brigade. We used to have two servers. We haven't been able to populate them since fucking June, July. We only have one now. We're planning on not renewing that when it comes up to be done in December, January, something like that. But basically, what happened in detail was, I think, mostly twofold. For what I saw from my point of view, which was very deeply entrenched in the community, being around all the time. I have thousands of hours in this game, and I know a lot of people who play. And what happened was kind of twofold. So there's a couple key people that they pissed off, key groups of people. The first key group is the server owners and seeders. It's less than 1% of the player population, but they have a huge impact, an absolutely huge impact on the actual healthiness of the game. See, seeding a server and keeping a server up is very, very difficult. And when they pissed off the people that were seeding the servers, they just stopped doing it. Um, what they did to piss them off, basically, they released the British faction. That was a disaster. That was awful. The British was not good. Some of the weapons were inaccurate. Pretty much all the weapons were a lot worse than their German counterparts. The tanks were worse. The sights of all the weapons are worse and still are worse. They don't have a semi-automatic rifle. They don't really have a good weapon for counter to the STG. They're just they're really lacking. Their LMG is the worst in the game. Their rifles are the worst in the game. Their SMGs are the worst in the game. It's just all around crap. So that's one thing. Like that can be looked past because you can just not play the British faction. You cannot play on the LLMA map, which is actually dogshit tier, or the Drill, whatever how the fuck you say it, the British map with the bridge. A lot of people don't like it. Some people like it. I think it's kind of mid. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. It's playable, right? I couldn't do it more than once in a row though, but the British faction wasn't that good. Then they increased the run speed to 20% more. They made it to where you could basically zigzag and bullets would, it'd be really hard to hit you. You could basically spam the dolphin diving mechanic. And the problem with that, the dolphin dive, so a lot of people didn't realize about the dolphin dive was that when you dove, your hitbox wasn't where showing your player was. It was slightly above the player. So a lot of people would be shooting the person as they were diving and not getting kills and then just like, it's fucking broken. Which it was. They're right. It was broken. You had to aim slightly higher than the person. And then you would hit them. A lot of people didn't figure that out and would only hit with luck if they didn't know to shoot high. Basically, the increased movement speed and the janky physics, not only did it break the game's what do you call it? It broke the game's balance because the sizes of the maps, the spawn times, the speed of the tanks, everything had been finely tuned over years by Team like Black Matter, not Team 17, by Black Matter, and then Team 17 came in and changed it, and it was basically a step backwards in actual gameplay because it broke all the mechanics. You could move around way too fast. You were faster than tanks in first gear, so you could just run up. You could run down tanks. It absolutely broken. And that combined with the bad British, and there's also a PR issue. I don't really have screenshots, so I don't really want to go into it uh, because I cannot remember exactly what happened. But basically, a bunch of people who were very prominent in the community, such as server owners and shit, got into a argument with a Team 17 um, advocate, not advocate. They got into an argument with someone that represented Team 17, and both sides piss each other off, right? And this was right after the really bad trailer that came out with the Airborne, when there was not advertising an Airborne actual thing. And what it was advertising still hasn't come out, which no one was going to do anyways because there's only 30 people or 50 people on the map. Excuse me, sorry. Anyways, what happened was these people that seed the servers and seed and run the servers, they are overly important to the health of the game, and they got pissed off. There was a lot of things in a row that kept going on for months and months and months, and eventually a lot of them just didn't want to do it anymore because it's a lot of work to seed a server. It's a lot of work to keep the servers running, and almost all the servers you see in Hell Let Loose are privately owned and ran. And realistically, you only have three ways of seeding the server. One, you either have a really big clan of like hundreds of members that are all have like different work schedules. They're sometimes international. Basically, you have a lot of people at your beck and call to just jump in a server and seed it. And to seed a server, you need about 30 to 40 people actually in it before randoms will start joining in mass. And then once they do that, then the server's up, and it'll be up for a while once you actually have a good amount of people. If you have the numbers to do that, you can. You can just jump in there with your hundreds of people at beck and call. You can easily get 30 out of that, jump into the server and seed it. However, it is very, very difficult to actually seed a server with that amount of people because you have to get them. And getting a clan up to hundreds of people that have 30 on hand is very difficult. It takes a lot. I could do a whole video explaining that if you guys want me to, whoever actually ever sees this video, if you want me to go into a deep dive of why recruiting is difficult, I'll do that. If anyone shows any interest, I'll probably just do that. I like info dumping sometimes. But basically, it takes a lot of effort to basically build up a group that large. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of people to put a lot of time in, and also takes some luck, good branding. It a lot of things go into it, and it's not necessarily doable for everybody. So if your clan isn't large enough to be able to seed with 30 people at any given point in time, you have the second option, which was you group up with 3 or 4 other clans so that you can all seed each other's servers. So you get maybe 8 to 12 people that are, at your beck and call that can jump on when you want to seed, and you join up with the other servers who have the same amount of people, and you just seed each other's servers. The issue with this is that now you have people coming home from work, coming home from school, coming home, and they want to play a game. They do not want to spend multiple hours a day seeding 3 or 4 or 5 servers. It takes about half an hour-ish to seed a server if everything goes smoothly. Sometimes servers just never seed. It does happen. So what you have is a situation where you burn your guys out really quickly and nobody wants to play the game anymore. People will stop showing up. You will kill the fun of the game for people. So then you have option 3. Option 3 is you have, for whatever reason, 2 to 5 people that are always at home. Either they work from home, they're unemployed, they're young or really old, for whatever reason, or they're just bums. But for whatever reason, they're able to be at home on their computer almost all the time, right? And you have these 2 to 5 people, they're able to get on the server, and you can effectively use bots. And how you do this is you buy a bunch of different copies of the game, and then there's a browser you can use to have them all basically queued up, and you can put them all into the server. You can sit there and you can put them all in the server while someone else places garrisons in the server so that when people join, they have somewhere to spawn. There is a huge issue with this. First of all, you actually have to have the people willing to do that who are at home for whatever reason, and that's not normal. I have a job. Most of my friends have jobs. There's very few people, and the ones that don't are in school. They're in college. So people I know are almost always busy during the middle of the day. You have almost nobody that is actually able to do that. So you have to find a few people that are able to do that, and you have to keep them happy. If they're like ultra weirdos, like people that stay home all the time usually are, that's going to be an issue. But more of an issue is the fact that you have to buy like 20, 30 versions of the game and put them on alt accounts and load them all into the server. And then you have to do this every day for hours, and you have to do this and hope it doesn't crash, because there's like crashing issues when you do that. Excuse me. I have to do a lot of, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. It's very difficult. And that's only to get to the point where you have a bunch of bots in the server. And then you have a problem, Because if you only have people start trickling in, and you don't just suddenly have a large wave of 10, 20 people join at a time, and you only have like onesies, twosies, like 5 to 10, they're going to notice that everyone else in the server is AFKing, or they're going to realize it's bots. And then they're going to leave. So you can go through all of that just for people to join and realize, hey, this server said it had 33 people in it. I joined it and there's nobody here. I'm going to leave, right? So you can put all that work in and it just fail. And that burns people out, makes them not want to do it anymore. So you're still back to the point of how the hell do you see the servers? So what happens is when you piss off the people who actually are doing this because they love the game, the only people that are willing to do this are people that absolutely just, they're obsessed with it. This is their favorite game ever. They love it, and they're willing to put forth effort to create a place for other people to play the game as well. And they got pissed off by Team 17, and they stopped playing. So then you get to the second stage of the issue, the second side. The second type of people that caused the game the second type of people that left the game that caused a large impact, and that's just the casual blueberries that jump in a server. Now, if you're jumping in a server, you're not going to jump in a completely full server with 100 people in it because there's the queue. And nobody wants to wait 20, 30 minutes to get into a server, right? When you can just scroll down a little bit to find a server that's like 80s to fucking 50s, even down to 30s amount of people that are, there's room to just join immediately. You don't have to wait in a queue. Especially if you're playing with friends, you're not going to try to get into a server where everyone has to, wait for like 10 minutes to actually squad up together. So what happens is when people stop seeding the servers, and the server owners and the seeders get pissed off, and the blueberries join, they're not going to join a server with 100 people in it. They're also not going to join a server with less than 30, 40 people in it. That's just, most people don't do that. They want to jump in and just get into action. So they're going to look for the servers that are under 100. They're like under 90 usually. Sometimes under 80 to like 50. That's usually where people look. And if you have less people populating the servers, less people seeding, less people actually running servers, you're going to have a lot less servers that are in that bracket. Because once a server gets to like 50, 60 people, it's going to completely fill up within 5 minutes. So you have a very short time, a window, to get into a server that isn't already full. So if you're trying to get in yourself or get in with friends, you're only going to have a handful of servers to pick from that have decent ping. Now, if you suddenly have a bunch of the server seeders and a bunch of the server owners pissed off and not playing the game, you're not going to have those servers being seeded. So you're not going to have those options. So now your options are, you might have one or two servers that have, 70, 80, 60 people to join. And then sometimes less. Sometimes they don't have good ping. So people leave. People just say, fuck that. I don't want to wait for half an hour to get into a server, and I don't want to join a full one. So I am just going to go, and I am going to go play a different game. They get on the next day, same thing happens. Because again, server owners, server seeders are out. They just don't want to play anymore. They're mad at the game. They're mad at the devs. And what happens is, this happens 3-4 times, and people just lose interest in the game because they can never get into the game. You're not going to open a game and then never play it. If you never play the game, you're just going to leave. So a lot of people just stop playing the game because of the weird changes, and then it's hard to get into a server. Why would you keep playing? From what I saw, that was basically what happened. A lot of people didn't like the changes because it got too COD, too like wonky. It got kind of weird, and a lot of people don't like COD. that play this type of game. People that play Hell Let Loose don't want to play, Call of Duty Battlefield 5. There's crossover, but there's less crossover than you would think. Um, so when you piss off those people and you make changes that are unpopular, then it's harder to get into a server. Your player count is going to drop off a cliff. It's just going to go down. So that is mainly what happened. From what I saw, from everyone I know that's talking, it's like, yeah, there's weird changes. It was hard to get into a server. And then all the other people who seed and whatnot, they didn't like it, so they didn't want to put in the effort to a game they didn't like anymore. That's a lot of negative stuff. So I have a couple things to say that I think can fix the game, that I think can bring it back. You can placate the seeders and the server owners by making a seeding mode. It'd be very easy. All you have to do is basically block out the map. Just don't, like when the map is starting, you have that wall that you're not able to go past the first 2 grid zones. Have that, except it's only encasing the middle point of the map, the 4 grid squares, and then 2 on each side. So 2 on the Allied side, 2 on the Axis side, and then 4 you can actually fight in. The Axis can't go into the Allied spawn zone, and the Allies can't go in the Axis spawn zone. And the server owners inside the Archon can set how many people the server has to get to unlock the rest of the map. And just have 1 or 2 on each side 10-second Garys, the ones that can't get killed by rockets, spawn on each side. So there's always a place to spawn. That way, you can seed a server with 8, 12 people. You don't need a bunch of guys to seed a server. You can do it with a few buddies. Because if there's just a confined little zone, people know that if they're joining a server that has 10 people in it, it's not going to be walking simulator. You're never going to see anybody. You're going to go straight into the cap zone that you're fighting over, and you're going to be able to fight over it until people actually join the lobby. And then once people join the lobby and it gets bigger and there's enough people on each side, then the rest of the map unlocks. That would make it so much easier to actually seed the game, to get the servers up. Then the people who are seeding the servers and people running the servers have incentive to get back into it because their jobs are a lot easier. It's way simpler to actually get the servers up. Second part, do not fuck with any of the mechanics. Just don't do it. You've already ruined your image doing that. And I think that reinstating the dolphin dive as they did recently, it's not broken this time, it's fine. But still the perception is way more important than the practical reality of it. Because it looks like they're tripling down on a bad idea. From the outside. That's the way it's perceived. Just don't fuck with any of the mechanics. All they have to do is release the Polish, the Finns, like they promised. They just have to release more maps and more factions. That's all they have to do, and people will come back. Not everyone will come back at once. They have to rebuild. But every time there is an influx of new content, such as maps, weapons, factions, thousands of people come back to the game. All they have to do is just add more and let people come back for that. And then once they see the game's not fucking broken again, they'll stay. And then you do that a couple more times and you can start building on it. That way, Team 17 can slowly get the player base back. They can get more people buying the game, and they can get people buying the DLC that they want to release that is in their content map. And that way they can make their money back on the game. They just have to not continue making weird changes that the community doesn't want. But that's pretty much all I've got on why I think the game went down. That was my view of it. If you have a different view, let me know. I really would like to hear the input. And not just for algorithm shit in the comments. Especially if you have an idea as to what you could do what they could do to fix a game, I would love to hear it because I want hope that the game will come back. I'm very interested in that. I would love to have a conversation with people about that. Um, this video took a. I've been sitting on this for months because basically Hell Let Loose was my escapism. It was my way of decompressing after my day and just kind of getting away from it all. And it got bought out and it got run into the ground. And that's something I've seen too many times, and it is really just heartbreaking. It's been hard to watch. It's been hard to just talk about. It's been hard to fucking deal with because the thing that you were using to get away from your issues, getting fucked over, is never good. And Hell Let Loose was my thing that I used to get away from my problems in my life. Um, yeah, it just everything you love gets bought out and destroyed, and this is just another thing, and it hurt. It's been a painful year, not just because of the game, but it's that was definitely not helpful, and it was the only thing that was for a long time, and now I don't really have much else. Well, that was fucking depressing. Sorry, but yeah. If you have any ideas on how to fix the game, or if you think I'm fucking stupid, let me know. Bye.